Back in one of the early modules, we looked at how there are different leadership styles. Do you remember we had the designer, developer, the motivator, influencer, the team builder, and the implementer? Well, what's going on behind here is, of course, there are different personalities depending on whether people are more fast-paced or more slow-paced, whether people are more task-orientated or people are more relationship-orientated. And, actually there are several different ways of looking at personality and different personality traits and so forth. But within this realm of leadership and management, another one that is quite useful is looking at the Myers-Briggs type indicator, which divides people on four different scales. One is about how people gain energy, and some people gain energy because they're an extrovert and they gain energy by being with other people, bouncing ideas off of other people, lots of relational interactions, whereas some people gain energy in a more introvert way by withdrawing into themselves. Some people gather information through their senses, what they can see, what they can hear, what they can measure, what they can monitor, whereas some people gather information more intuitively by what they feel. Some people make decisions based on more, let's say, rational thinking, whereas some people make their decisions more based on the feelings that are that come from the potential choices. And some people choose their priorities based on a judgment, on deciding what needs to happen. It's about clarity, about order, and can be a little bit less flexible, whereas other people choose their priorities on what has been termed a perceiving basis, which is where they actually enjoy the gathering of information rather than just the receiving the information. They enjoy the process of gathering it, and actually the process is the thing that they may enjoy more. And so you can imagine, when you look at this, that there's different types of staff that you may interact with. There's other leaders that you will interact with who are going to all have different places on this. And of course, it also is going to make a difference depending on where the people come from in the world, because people from certain nations will tend to come from different places on these spectrums. So extrovert, Nicaragua, Lebanon, India is also fairly extrovert, whereas Nepal, UK, Austria, Germany, Brazil tend to be more introvert. Sensing, Afghanistan, Singapore, China tend to be more sensing, whereas India, UK, Nepal, Austria tend to be more intuitive. How people are thinking or feeling, where decision making comes from. Russia tends to be more thinking, Syria, Afghanistan, whereas more feeling based would be much of Europe and Nepal, UK, Singapore, and so forth. And when we're choosing priorities, Nigeria, Ghana, Afghanistan, China, they tend to be more judging orientated, whereas perceiving would be more Australia, Austria, Nepal, Finland, Iceland, UK, Germany, and so on. So, different countries are going to be in different places. So that will also skew things depending on who you are dealing with. Now, why do we bring all of this up? Well, it's because when we are thinking about decision making within an organization, we actually need to lean on different ways of thinking. And some people are stronger in some ways of thinking than others. So, for example, if we were in a decision-making process, it has been argued that actually you need to involve all four of these types of decision-making. So, for example, it could be, let's say we're at the monitor influencer person, and they might say, "Come on, everybody, we need to address this issue." They're pulling people together. sure enough, then the team builder needs to become involved. Yes, let's do this. Let's get behind this person. Let's make this happen. Let's look. You've got a real skill in X. You could fit in here, says the team builder. That's great, but it also needs to move on. So the implementer then says, all right, let's think through the different options of how are we going to do this. And then at some point, the designer developer says, come on, enough talk. Let's get this done. So, you can see you actually need all four at some point. It doesn't have to start with monitor influencer, a motivator influencer. Maybe it could start, let's say, with the implementer. The implementer is going to say, oh, look, the data shows that we've got a real problem in this particular area. Okay, we need to address this, says the designer developer. Okay, who wants to join in on this project, says the monitor influencer. And then the team builder can jump in with, yeah, okay, I can do X, you can do Y, this person's good, together we can do this. But you can see it doesn't really matter where you start, but you need to involve all four of these different styles, these different personalities in order to get a good decision made. In the same way, when we looked at the Myers-Briggs, here we've got sensing and intuition, thinking and feeling. They all have strengths when it comes to decision making. So those who are sensing, they're very focused on the what. What is this? What's the details here? Whereas the intuition is thinking, how? How does this fit? How does this fit in with other things? Feeling person is going to be thinking about the who. Who is involved? Who is this going to affect? The thinking person is thinking where? Where does this fit in the process? Or we can split it up a different way. And we can look at the thinking and feeling both and the judging and perceiving. Somebody who is both thinking and judging, they tend to be focused on kind of effectiveness issues. If somebody is both feeling and judging, they will tend to be more harmony orientated. If somebody is more perceiving and thinking, they're very focused on accuracy. Whereas if somebody is perceiving and feeling orientated, they'll be more interested in authenticity. And you can see there's a whole bunch of different personalities going on here, and the value of somebody who is trying to put together a team, the real magic here is trying to find people who have different personalities to build into your team. It is so tempting as a leader to build people around yourself who think like you, because they are easy to relate to, they understand you, they give you nice positive feedback, everybody's happy, but those kind of teams don't necessarily make very good decisions. Here's another tool that is encouraging us to think in a broad way about building a team. A chap called Belbin, he came up with these 9 different team roles. And he said that they fall into sort of these 3 categories of thinking, action and social. He said that in any significantly effective team, in a team that is going to be really effective, significantly effective, it needs to have all of these 9 different roles happening. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to have 9 people. It could be that you just have 4 or 5 people. But each of those people has to be strong in different areas of this in order for really effective decision making to take place. Let's just run through what these different the 9 are. I know it's going to be a bit hard for you to see it on the screen here, but hopefully in the handout or in the PowerPoint you can also look this up online. Belbin's team roles. You have a plant, which is somebody who's very creative and imaginative, but sometimes they're not too focused on details. You have the resource investigator, somebody who's very outgoing and enthusiastic, very full of communicative skills, but they can be a little bit overly optimistic. The coordinator, somebody who is a bit more mature, confident, helps identify the talents amongst the group and pulls these things together, good at delegating, but can sometimes be seen as being a little bit manipulative. A shaper, very good at challenging. They enjoy a bit of drama, a bit of stress, but they can also be maybe a little bit offensive sometimes. Monitor evaluator, strategic, discerning, working out what's going to work well and what's going to fail, where the problems might be. But they can be a little bit negative, and possibly overly critical. Team worker, often very cooperative, very perceptive, very diplomatic. They listen well, but they can also be a bit indecisive. Implementer, somebody who's very practical, very reliable, very efficient. They will turn ideas into actions and into reality, but of course they can also be a little bit inflexible, and maybe a bit slow to respond if something changes. Completer finisher, diligent, conscientious, possibly a bit anxious. They will polish out the problems, they will finish this project. But they can be a bit reluctant to delegate because they feel that they need to do it. And the specialist, somebody who is very single-minded on a particular skill or a particular talent, very dedicated, and they bring a skill or a knowledge that is rare. But of course, it can also be that they then only contribute in that very narrow field. Now, with these 9 different types, you can look at your team members. Maybe they're listed here, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. These are your different team members. And you could look at the 9 different roles, Belbin roles, and then you could do a little assessment, and you could say who definitely is or definitely is not these different roles, and you can then plot that out, and you can say, hey, look, as a team we are strong in certain areas, but we are also weak in certain areas. Therefore, if we are going to recruit somebody else into our team, ideally we're looking for this type of person. And sometimes you can't always bring in the team that you want, but at least you can be aware as a team, hey guys, look, we're doing it again. We as a team tend to go in this direction. We need to change our thinking a little bit and try and think more about such and such. So, that being aware is at least useful, even if we can't change the team that we actually have. It's important to recognize within the team, we are not equals. We are all different, but everybody in the team has equal value. And that is important. We need to know the strengths and weaknesses that we have within our team, because then we can support each other. We know, when something is particularly this person's talent, this fits well with their personality, let them do it. Let them run with it. And then when the project moves on to the next stage and it becomes somebody else's gifting, let them take it. Don't hold too strongly onto things, particularly when you know that actually it's moving outside of where your strength is.